You go this way?
Okay, awesome. I'll first start saying that like my experience is probably a little bit different than from most part of people here. I'm not from Utah, I'm not from the United States, I'm from Brazil. I'm from a really urban area in Brazil, so like I'm like my experience is like really different. Similar to like some people were sharing in the like previous session, my family was extremely anxious too. So there was like almost not a lot of time for like, not time, but like experience for like nature playing as a kid. But I found my ways and I love like being outside or like playing in the garden, like when I was allowed to. I think it's also important to remember like every person is gonna have like a different experience. Playing outside, and for some cultures and like depending where you're from, like it has like a different perspective. Like from where I am from, like we don't play outside alone a lot. It's like I don't like the stereotype of the idea like Brazil is a dangerous place, but it is different. And the playing outside or like going camping, going like hiking, it's not something that we do as often from where I am from. It's not that there is no place to go. It's like there is not as much like the infrastructure or like the safety to be able to go to those places. So I grew up going whenever like school allowed or my family allowed. And I like loved playing outside when I could. I think most kids do. It was just like, yeah, a different perspective, like a little bit of fear related to that too. And then growing up, moving to Utah, I moved to Utah 7 years ago, changed a lot of my perspective. And I still today am learning, like, yeah, no, like, yeah, you guys are sharing, like, oh yeah, we can go outside here, we can do all those things. It's still like a slow process, but being able today to also work with like teens that had like a similar perspective that I had growing up, and being able to also like being allowed, not allowed, but like create those experiences for everybody. I feel like sharing with them as well and feeling more brave to do more things outside as well. So that's a bit of my story. Yeah.
Thanks for like providing that perspective that everybody doesn't have that same baseline with their relationship to being outdoors. It looks a lot different for a lot of different people. And thanks for that.
Yeah.
Daniel?
How far back do you want to go, I guess, is what I was thinking. And what I mean by that is like, you know, in I come from many Trace people, or many peoples, but that's one of the primary groups that I descend from, Highland Maya group in Guatemala, or Simuleo. And in our creation story, like for me, I just think about the invention of the ancient Maya ball game, is play, but it's not just, you know, outside, it's in the underworld, it's in the cosmos. And I think about those stories and growing up with them and thinking about, we call it chai, but you know, there's so many different metaphors of connectedness to place, to the cosmos. And then I think I did grow up doing a lot of stuff outside and outdoors. And with the definition, it says like self-directed, but I think for me personally, it was always like communally directed. In that early example of like being apprehensive or not for risk, like I don't like taking risks. So I was over on that side. But like in actuality, I always end up taking risks. That's because I'm always with a bunch of cousins who peer pressure me. And so like I do all the stuff I don't want to do, but I do it anyway. And so I think for me, being outside is that kind of communal direction. That's part of it. And you know, for me, it was always in relation to my parents' stories. My parents grew up in Ishimuleo, in Guatemala. They were there, I mean, their whole life. Upbringing was during a time of conflict in the 36-year long Civil War. And my dad is urban Maya, and my mom is rural Latina, so of mixed ancestry, and had very different experiences to outside and place, but both had very intimate connections to place. I grew up with stories of my mom, you know, like there was no separation, right? Like nature is life, and it's a source of life. And so for her, it was very much about how they depended on the land for their sustenance. Whereas my dad, being in the like very urban setting, like concrete jungle, like full on, right? And but at the same time, his stories of camping was out in the jungle, you know, and wasn't bears, it's jaguars, you know, you're thinking about it and that kind of thing. And he'd also, you know, climb volcanoes and that kind of stuff growing up. And so everything I did outside here was very powerful for me, but it was powerful because of its connection to my parents and their connections. They're mountain people and we're in a very different place than the northern hemisphere here, right? Or above the tropic zone, but for them, they were connecting with the mountains with kind of a related form of geography, the high altitude. So I guess for me, that's kind of that's where my mind went, was like these old stories of our creation, these stories of my family, my parents, and then like communally playing outside, or maybe just doing life stuff. I don't know if we'd call it play. I mean, I look at back now and it's probably exploited child labor, but you know, for us, we were playing. And so that's what I was thinking, yeah, what do we mean by nature?
Your mom said nature is everything, and that can be the source of like your food, your medicines, just the things that you have in the home. So that's beautiful, and just a full connection to your ancestral lineage. Thank you. What about for you?
Yeah, and to kind of echo something Mariana was saying, in my formative years, I did not have a lot of outside play. My mother came from El Salvador, my father from Mexico. They faced poverty growing up, so they spent a lot of time outdoors against their will. They sleep outside, they'd have to figure out the food situation, and that passed on to me, where I understood from them that they don't care to be outside as much. Why, when you work so hard to get a roof over your head, you want to go leave that. So with that made me very curious as a child. It made me think about STEM, what we can offer for youth. It was something that really formed in me as I was 18, where I pursued biology and loved that. And it came from that absence of it. Yeah.
Just a way to reconnect with it. Thank you all for just like getting us grounded in what nature and what nature play means for you. As I've been kind of sharing, I have this enthusiasm for nature play, whether it was me running cross country and being in Riverside, California, which is an agricultural community in Southern California, and running cross country through orange groves and picking oranges, and just having all of that tactile experience. I'd love to know where you all think about the barriers, because we know that there are barriers to having young people access nature play, whether it's electronics or it's just that it's not safe for youth to be outside, and we don't have our youth like run around communally and just go find a kid to play with. Like, I think I was one of the last generation where they would say, go and find a friend, and I would spend the afternoon outside and just come back home before it was dark, and you know, everything was fine, and we don't do that anymore. But what barriers do you all see in addition to what you've already spoken about to nature play? And have you witnessed or been a part of any work to address these barriers? We can go this way. So Jonny.
Sure. So some of the work I've done facing that, with my work with Latino Outdoors, there was a lot of emphasis on we call them the 4 Ps. So connecting people to people, that is a big thing, because if you feel isolated from a community, who do you even connect with to think about exploring outdoor spaces? How do you find any of those resources? That was a big part of it. That's the first P, people to people. People to place. So thinking about a setting, what is in that setting? How do we use that setting? How do we connect that setting? People to process. So that's a lot of like self-realization, having participants in program think about how can they do this beyond program? How can they access these locations? How can they access resources? Who can they reach out to? This one didn't happen too much, but people, for people's policy, thinking about how do we protect those places? How can we instill permanent care and connection, thinking about protecting a place? And to get more at the first part of the question about barriers, there are so many we encounter through that. So safety is a big one. Thinking about talking with educators in other states, they would have to talk to state parks ahead of time and ask, like, should we expect immigration to be called on us and the people we have with us? Thinking about who is in your program, who's in your group, youth, whoever's in this, thinking about their needs, thinking about any barriers they may be facing. That could be language, that could be transportation, that could be even just coming to something hungry is a barrier. And I think there's a lot I could say about that, but yeah, I think I'll add that.
Yeah.